Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. A walkout took place across Alberta by students who say they're supporting trans youth. A concerned parent from Freedom Hub Lethbridge explains why she's applauding the recent regulations and legislation announced by the province involving trans youth. And Operation Christmas Child was another huge success. We hear from Samaritan's Purse to find out just how many shoeboxes Canadians filled for needy kids around the world.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Teenagers across the province staged a school walkout Wednesday morning to protest Premier Daniel Smith's proposed gender identity policies. Last week, Smith announced a number of policy changes related to gender-diverse youth and sexual education. Now, this includes the requirement for parental notification and consent if a child aged 15 or younger changes their name or pronouns at school. Puberty blockers and hormone therapies for gender affirmation will not be permitted for kids aged 15 and under, but youth aged 16 and 17 will be permitted to start gender affirmation therapy as long as they're deemed mature enough and have parental, physician, and psychologist approval. BCN's Naveen Day was at Lethbridge Collegiate Institute to talk to the organizer of the walkout that was held at her school.
You had the walkout today. Can you just tell us a little bit about the numbers, how many students showed up, how many people came out?
Oh my, I don't think I could count how many students had came out, at least over 50, maybe up to even 100 students. Personally, I was super happy with the turnout of this walkout here in LCI because I was only expecting like maybe 10 or so students to come on out, and seeing the insane amounts of students here today to really stand up and use their voice here at LCI and show how powerful we as a generation are was really, really great to see.
What are some of the key issues here with what the province recently announced?
Mainly with the key issues being not allowing students under 16 to change their names and pronouns without parental consent, and if they're over 16 and over, they unfortunately have to get notified. The changes have to get notified to a parent, which is really not good since it can unfortunately expose students to their parents who might not be supportive, as well as the changes towards hormone blockers and hormones for students under 16 are really not good, since hormone blockers and hormone replacement therapy are proven scientifically to be very helpful for all trans people, as well as being just general lifesavers for many people, especially hormone blockers for those who are not able to have access to hormone replacement therapy. So, and as well, all these changes are unfortunately made out of just hatred and fear and misunderstanding of us as a community.
Now, the province-wide walkout was planned by a 16-year-old grade 10 student in Leduc. Aspen Servo says his 13-year-old brother is transgender, and the walkout was meant to show him and others that they're supported. Now, here in Lethbridge, students from Chinook High School and Winston Churchill High School also participated. You know, many parents are celebrating the recent announcement from the province regarding gender identity and no more surgeries for minors. You can include Shell Landry in that group. She's a parent and part of Freedom Hub Lethbridge. Landry says the backlash we're hearing right now is real regarding the recent policy announcement, but at the end of the day, we really need to protect our kids.
There is a lot of backlash, yes. A lot of the things we see online may include more of that backlash just because of censorship and the people who have the opinion, or the parents and the community members who support this, are being censored. And so their voices aren't being heard, and they're looking like the minority, when in actuality, it is those who are pro-gender transition for minors that are the minority. And we cannot pander to the minority just to appease them when it's putting our children at risk.
Make sure you catch the full interview with concerned parent and Freedom Hub Lethbridge leader Shell Landry and myself coming up later in our program. In Ottawa, federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was asked if he supports age limitations for puberty blockers and hormone therapies for trans kids.
I think that Justin Trudeau is trying to divide and distract Canadians by spreading disinformation about the decisions that premiers and parents are making.
What do you think? What do you think? I want to know your position. What is your own party policy? It's your own party policy. At party
I
convention.
think we should protect the rights of parents to make their own decisions.
What does it mean?
With regards to their children. And I believe that adults should have the freedom to make any decision they want about their bodies.
But minors.
I think they're-
Ban
I think-
surgeries and medical interventions for minors, as your own party members suggested.
Medical
sir.
interventions like what?
That is the language that your party
What medical
used.
interventions?
Well, you would have to ask your party members.
What medical
such
interventions?
such as puberty blockers and hormone
For
replacement
minors?
therapy. Yeah. Yes.
Irreversible? You're talking about irreversible?
I'd like to understand your
I just want to be
position.
clear. No, I want to be clear. I just want to be
For
clear.
minors.
Puberty blockers for minors?
Do you agree with that?
Do you agree with that?
I think that we should protect children and their
does that
ability
mean?
to make adult decisions when they are adults.
Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh introduced a private member's bill he says would really empower Canada's Competition Bureau to tamp down on anti-competitive practices from grocery companies such as price fixing.
And to me, it just highlights how out of touch Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are. They're so out of touch that they've never had to worry about buying groceries. It's never been a concern for them that they can't afford the groceries that their family needs. So that's why they haven't taken this seriously. And the Conservatives, we know, are not going to take on corporate greed. The Conservatives, when they were in power, gave massive tax giveaways to corporations. They gave them massive tax giveaways. They're not going to take on corporations that are ripping off Canadians. And we know now that Pierre Poilievre's campaign manager is a registered lobbyist for Galen Weston's Loblaws. So they're not going to offend their bosses. They're not going to take on the corporate greed that is driving up food. So that's why we've taken this on ourselves and we put forward this bill. Our bill, put simply, is going to take on corporate greed and bring down the prices of food.
Operation Christmas Child was a huge success yet again. The initiative by Samaritan's Purse delivered 220 million shoeboxes to kids in more than 170 countries and territories. The support for the Christmas Shoebox campaign was also quite strong here locally. Now to chat about it in more detail is Frank King, News Media Relations Manager for Samaritan's Purse, Canada, and he joins us from Calgary. Frank, how many boxes were filled across the country?
So across Canada, 425,209 shoeboxes were packed by generous Canadians for children in need in Central America and West Africa and Ukraine and Philippines. That's where Canadian packed shoeboxes go to children who, in many cases, have never received a gift in their lives.
So how many specifically were filled here in Alberta and in areas where we are, such as Lethbridge and Medicine Hat?
So Alberta, we had 88,639, which is second only to Ontario. And Lethbridge residents, we're so grateful to them. They packed 2,334 shoeboxes. And our friends in Medicine Hat packed 1,606 shoeboxes. And the nice thing is, Hal, every shoebox is a gospel opportunity, not just for those children, but also for their families, because often when these shoeboxes are given to kids at distribution events, their parents are quite often with them. And before they receive the shoeboxes, we tell them all about Jesus. So so we're thrilled with how God continues to use this program for his glorious work.
It's great to hear. Now, Frank, what were some of the biggest needs for kids during Operation Christmas Child?
Well, definitely the things we ask people to put in shoeboxes are school supplies, hygiene items, and toys. And let me tell you why particularly. When my wife and I pack our shoeboxes, we always make sure there's school stuff in there, because even in countries where the education system is free, oftentimes the children have to bring their own supplies like paper, pencils, erasers, rulers, whatever. So for a lot of children, that alone means they don't get an education. So it's definitely a priority for my wife and I when we pack our shoeboxes. Let's make sure these kids have as few barriers as possible to getting that life-changing education.
So Frank, someone's watching at home right now, they want to donate outside of the Christmas holiday season. How do they go about doing that?
Well, this is the blessing here, Hal, and that is we have a website called packabox.ca. And it's basically like shopping at Amazon. You pick your age and your gender and all that. We present you with a basic package of items. You can add onto those items, and then you check out, you pay your money, and what happens is we get a whole bunch of volunteers here at our Calgary Processing Center. We get them all together, and we physically pack the boxes that people do online.
Thanks so much for your time today, Frank. That was Frank King, News Media Relations Manager for Samaritan's Purse Canada, joining us from Calgary. Well, it was a bit of a foggy Wednesday. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, we had a little bit of everything today. Some fog, light flurries, beautiful hoarfrost, but things, however, may be warming up a little as we make our way to the weekend.
Yeah, that's right, Hal. We are going to see the temperature warm right up to the pluses by the weekend. Now, you did mention the fog, and we have been under a fog advisory throughout today that should actually last until Thursday. So we saw patches of fog lifting this afternoon that should redevelop tonight and then go right into Thursday when we'll see it lifting throughout the day on Thursday. Also, keep in mind, we're looking at a risk of freezing drizzle, so that should make surface areas quite slippery. So as well as the slippery surfaces, we're also seeing the low visibility because of the fog, and then add to that, we got a slight chance of flurries overnight and into Thursday as well. So a lot going on. Good news, though, is that we're still in the seasonal range, -5 for high, and it's just going to keep getting higher throughout the week until we get to the weekend. And I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Well, it's the season of love, and you may be looking for someone special to spend it with this Valentine's Day. The Better Business Bureau of Southern Alberta, however, has issued a warning about romance scams. Now, these fraudsters often enter a trusting relationship with an unsuspecting person for the benefit of money. A spokesperson for the BBB says the scammers know how to really pull on your heartstrings.
Scammers are very good at showering you with love, with a lot of affection, just to establish a trust or earn your trust. And what that really means is that they want to plant that seed for you to trust in them. So once that trust is being established, then they can continue to perpetrate the scam, which is usually a request for money or an offer to accept money.
Now, officials say to really watch out for red flags like professing their love before even meeting in person, always having an excuse why they can't see you in person, or guilting you into spending money. The BBB says sugar daddy scams are also on the rise, and even though free money sounds great, you're putting yourself in a really sticky situation.
You can end up being in a crime ring, part of a crime ring, as they would trap you into this situation where they're using you as a money mule. That's a term that's used to do the money laundering. So to accept money and to wire money overseas. And the risk is if you end up being part of this crime ring, although you are the victim of this, but you can also face prosecution.
And the folks with the BBB say if you feel you're the victim of a scam, you're encouraged to end contact right away and reach out to your local police department. Lethbridge police have charged 4 men with drug trafficking offenses. Police say while working with Alberta sheriffs, they were able to seize fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine during a targeted traffic stop on February the 1st. Now, during their investigation, they located a second vehicle in a Southside parking lot, seizing more fentanyl, cocaine, meth, and around 30 narcotic pills. Police then headed to a local hotel room where they confiscated 616 grams of cocaine, 18 grams of fentanyl, and around $28,000 in cash. Estimated street value for the drugs was over $100,000. 26-year-old Zachary Bottle of Fort Macleod, 53-year-old Edward Goodrich of Granham, 49-year-old Marty Franson of Lethbridge, and 30-year-old Charles Sittick of Calgary all face various drug-related charges and would be headed to court to answer to those charges. As you've heard on Bridge City News, a recall petition has been launched by a Calgary businessman who's not happy with the job that Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek is doing. Landon Johnston is the man behind the petition, and he joins us now from Calgary to talk about it. Landon, many feel that Jyoti Gondek is a one-and-done mayor for the city of Calgary. I'm guessing you may feel the same way. What is it about her leadership and the current council that has you so upset?
It's been, 2 years of this so far, and it's just been immediately she got in, she introduced a climate emergency for Calgary. That alone was, I guess I just didn't see the reasoning behind it, or it didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time. But I know a lot of people were confused about it. And then it was the issue with the canceling the arena deal, like that was on the taxpayers again to pay for the the cancellation of that, and then she comes out with a new one that costs more money. It's just like the infighting within council, the inability to get a lot of votes passed that are beneficial to the city. And then it was a single-use bylaw that came through, and just the amount of money that was spent on introducing a bill, and then the money spent taking it away, and now they're looking at putting it back in, it just under a different name.
Now, you have to get 500,000 signatures in person, and you only have 2 months to do it. That's a pretty daunting task. Do you have a good-sized team out there helping you?
On Monday, it was just me. On Monday, I was literally just going to go in front of City Hall with a chair, a heater, and a blanket and just sign people there. And I was just going to be there every weekend by myself. That was the initial plan. I was talking to my wife about it. I'm like, you know what? This is a recourse that I can use as a single one person in this city, and I'm going to do it because this was given to us as a legislation and a recourse to voice our opinion. And it turned out that I wasn't the only one. I'm getting emails and calls from organizations that were prepared to do this. I just beat them to the punch. So these organizations, left wing, right wing, whoever they are, have come together to support. And again, they had the infrastructure in place, professional door knockers. They have places where people can go. They've got administration staff. Like it's turned into this huge thing where now I'm like, holy moly, like we might actually be able to. Yeah, I mean, I'll shoot for the stars.
So even if you don't collect the 500,000 signatures needed, do you feel that your message will get across to Mayor Gondek and Council and your voice is being heard?
I was hoping it would be. I was really hoping that would have woken the city up, but the comments coming from council and from the mayor makes me seem like they're not hearing us. So I think the voice is just going to get louder and louder and louder to the point where, they're going to have to hear us, right? Like, I can't believe like the comments that she's made so far about like she's worried about the data, like personal data being moved around and stuff. Well, you know what, Mayor? Like we're going by the legislation. Like this is the proper way to do it. If she's worried about the data, well, it's the government who created this process.
Landon Johnston, Calgary business owner and the man behind the recall petition of Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek. Thanks so much for your time today. And by the way, if you want to get involved, that's the website to check out, recallmayorgondek.com. The province says a new drought advisory committee has been launched here in Alberta. They say El Nino is producing a very warm and dry winter across much of the prairies, and more than 70% is experiencing drought conditions. They say Alberta is at risk of severe drought this year. The 6-person advisory committee will include leaders in agriculture, Indigenous leaders, irrigation, and those who specialize in rural issues. It will act as an independent sounding board to help the government support farmers and ranchers. It'll also give advice directly to Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz. Officials say the members will also help identify long-term solutions to help benefit future generations. Well, we had a fog advisory earlier today, along with some slightly cooler temperatures and quite a bit of snow here in the southwestern part of the province. And there's a bit of a warming trend coming. We'll have complete weather details coming for you in just a moment. You know, this is the time of year when you see a little bit of hoarfrost, and today was no exception in Lethbridge. Check out some of the beauty that our team captured today, Naveen and Hayden. Look at the hoarfrost in the city. Isn't that beautiful? And a beautiful bald eagle they also captured. That is incredible. Look at that. Really nice, but it's too bad that the eagle didn't stick around. Flying off to maybe grab some dinner or something. There he goes. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, we experienced some of the hoarfrost, but also a bit of fog as well today?
Yes, and as mentioned before, there has been a fog advisory for Lethbridge and the surrounding area that should last until Thursday. Didn't seem to bother that eagle very much, though. Wasn't he just beautiful? That is such a rare find to see in the city. Maybe he was just sitting there in the tree waiting for the fog to clear. Who knows? But yeah, that fog advisory expected overnight into Thursday as well. That's when we'll see that lifting. Also risk of freezing drizzle and could see some flurries as well. tonight and tomorrow. -5 for a high. That should stick around until Friday with mainly cloudy skies. Then we're going to see it clear up, -3 for a high. Then there's those pluses starting on Sunday, high of 3 degrees, up to 4 on Monday, and 1 degree on Tuesday to round out that 7-day forecast. So the average high for this time of year is 0, average low -12. So we've been nicely in that range for the most part. 19 was our high temperature. That was a record high on this day back in 1954. And the record low for this day was happened back in 1994, and it was -34. Sun rose this morning at 7:57. Sun set this evening at 5:35. We're getting so close to that 10-hour mark, just a little bit under. We're sitting at about 9 hours and 48 minutes of daylight. On the west coast tomorrow, a little bit of a rainy one, looking at 40% chance of showers in the morning, 70%. Make that 70% by the afternoon, though. 8 degrees for a high in Victoria. 8 also in Vancouver, also looking at some rain as well and some fog lifting in the morning there. Looking at a high of -3 in Edmonton. We're looking at 30% chance of flurries and risk of freezing drizzle. Calgary, much the same tomorrow as Lethbridge with that fog advisory in effect until Thursday. -2 for a high, also seeing 30% chance of flurries and a risk of freezing drizzle there as well. We are looking at periods of light snow in both Saskatoon and Regina tomorrow. -4 for a high in Saskatoon, -3 in Regina. 1 for a high in Winnipeg. Now, here's what's happening. We've got a Colorado low approaching southeastern Saskatchewan and southern Manitoba, so that's going to change those nice mild temperatures, also bringing with it a mixed bag of precipitation. We're seeing an actual rain-snow line developing across the Red River Valley towards Ontario. So tomorrow what Winnipeg is going to see is rain and then sharply changing to snow by the afternoon. So there you have it. As we get into the central part of the country, Toronto sitting at a lovely 6 degrees tomorrow with a mix of sun and cloud. And then we've got clearing skies in both Ottawa and Montreal tomorrow. Ottawa a little bit warmer, 1 degree for a high and -2 for an expected high tomorrow in Montreal. Let's get over into Atlantic Canada, shall we? Fredericton sitting at a high of 0 with clear skies. Beautiful. A lovely 2 degrees expected in Halifax tomorrow with clearing in the morning, clearing late afternoon in Charlottetown, 0 for a high. And also 0 expected to be the high in St. John's tomorrow. St. John's looking at a 40% chance of flurries and a risk of freezing drizzle with up to 40 km winds there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Canada posted its first merchandise trade deficit since July and December. Stats Canada says the $312 million deficit compares with a revised surplus of $1.1 billion in November. Exports, meanwhile, fell 1.9% in December to $64.1 billion as shipments of motor vehicles and parts, along with energy products and crude oil exports declined. Imports rose 0.2% to $64.4 billion on increases in consumer goods and imports of medicine. Cenovus Energy and Athabasca Oil have closed a deal to create Duvernay Energy Corporation. The new joint venture standalone company will be based in northwestern Alberta. Athabasca will own a 70% equity interest, while Cenovus will own the remaining 30%. Athabasca says current production from Duvernay is 2,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day, which is expected to grow around 6,000 barrels per day next year. From flamin' hot Cheetos to sweet heat Starburst, snacks here in North America are getting a little spicier. Now it appears as though Coca-Cola wants in on the trend. The Atlanta-based beverage giant introduced Coca-Cola Spiced, the first new offering in about 3 years. The original Spiced and Spiced Zero will go on sale in Canada and the United States beginning February the 19th. Coca-Cola Spiced does not have a lot of heat, but apparently it does have a little hint of raspberry. Coke won't name the spices it added, but they apparently taste like amped-up versions of the spices in regular Coke. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 11 points on the day to finish at 20,969. The Dow was up 156 points to 38,677. The S&P 500 was up 40 on the day to 49.95, and the Nasdaq was up 147 points to finish at 15,756. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 75 cents to 74.06 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to $1.97 US. Gold was down 78 cents to $2,035.36 US an ounce, and silver was down 21 cents to $22.22 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.63 per bushel. Barley is at $6.23. Canola is at $12.81, and corn is at $7.52 per bushel. Live cattle were down 78 cents to $182.23. Feeder cattle March contract were down $1.13 to $245.55. Lean hogs were down 10 cents to $73.38, and the Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 74.28 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, teenagers across Alberta staged a school walkout Wednesday morning to protest Premier Daniel Smith's proposed gender identity policies. Last week, Smith announced a number of policy changes related to gender-diverse youth and sexual education. This includes the requirement for parental notification and consent if a child aged 15 or younger changes their name or pronouns at school. You know, many parents are applauding the Alberta government's new parental rights, rules, and legislation. Coming up, we're going to hear from one of those parents, Shell Landry, who's also part of Freedom Hub Lethbridge, who explains why she's pleased with a recent message from Alberta Premier Daniel Smith. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of our local stories, visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith has been taking a lot of heat lately after announcing that her government will be making changes which will boost parental rights when it comes to transgender and personal pronoun issues for minors. Now, to chat about this in more detail is Shell Landry, who's a parent herself and one of the leaders of Freedom Hub Lethbridge. Shell, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
You bet. Now, first of all, why don't you explain to our viewers what Freedom Hub is all about?
So Freedom Hub is just a community group that I started in 2021. And so it's kind of a spot where people can come together, build community, and support each other in our rights. And it's really important to just know people in your community, right? So I kind of wanted to build that.
Now, Premier Daniel Smith was talking a bit about gender reassignment surgery and the fact that it'll be banned in Alberta for those 17 and under. Smith says since this is a life-altering decision with permanent consequences, that it's best left for adults to decide, not children, not minors. Critics are calling this a very cruel decision. What are your thoughts?
I think the critics are a little confused as to what it means to protect children. I absolutely love what Danielle has put forward, and I think that it is definitely time to see our politicians step up and help protect the children and parental rights and the children's rights, because this is about our parental rights to protect the children, right? So as a minor, they're not able to make certain decisions for themselves. They may think that they know what they want, but children change their mind as they grow and develop. And it is very important that we make sure that we're not putting them in harm's way just to appease public opinion, because that's how people get hurt. There's so many children who have had reassignment surgery or taken hormones and live to regret it. So it can be very dangerous to do this to children, and in encouraging gender transition in minors is very dangerous. So I absolutely love that our premier has stepped up to the plate and put forth action to protect children and parental rights.
There appears to be a lot of media attention focused on the LGBTQ2+ community, their supporters, who call the Premier's decision deplorable, many within that community. There's also reaction outside of our borders here in Alberta and even outside of Canada. What feedback are you observing outside of the mainstream media?
I'm observing that in our community, people are happy with these policies. There is a lot of backlash, yes. A lot of things we see online may include more of that backlash just because of censorship, and the people who have the opinion, or the parents and the community members who support this, are being censored. And so their voices aren't being heard, and they're looking like the minority, when in actuality, it is those who are pro gender transition for minors that are the minority. And we cannot pander to the minority just to appease them when it's putting our children at risk.
Now, puberty blockers and hormone therapies would also not be allowed except for those who've already begun the process, Shell. Again, those opposed say this discriminates against the trans community, particularly the puberty blockers, which are very time sensitive. What are your thoughts on these kind of treatments?
Oh, well, my thoughts are that it's it's so dangerous to give children any kind of drugs or treatment that could cause long-term damage. And we've seen that, there's evidence of that. So it's very, very important that we keep a stand on this and educate those who are opposed because they probably don't understand the implications of these hormone therapies. These drugs that they give to children are the same drugs that they would give to a pedophile to medically castrate them. Um, it would make children infertile for the rest of their lives. So if they grow up and decide, well, I actually want kids, they won't be able to. And that's not a decision about having kids to make when you're a kid, because kids don't even have that on their purview. They they aren't thinking about I want to be a mom or a dad. And some kids do think about that, but it's not really until you're past that puberty stage, you know, closer to maybe 18, 19, 20, or even 25, or some people wait till 30 before they're like, yeah, actually, I want to have kids. So it's important we don't take that option away. It's irreversible. And these hormone therapies cause extreme health damage. You know, it shortens the lifespan of a person who has these treatments done, and it breaks down their bones. It's just really detrimental to the physical being of the person, especially minor children. You don't want to be messing around with those natural chemical um, hormones in the body by adding in extra things. And we do have research data on how these affect children, um, but we need more, you know, and it's not a good idea to continue giving children these medications until, you know, maybe there is more research coming out in 20 years or 30 years when we can see the effects that have happened on the children who have already undergone these things. But we don't want our children to be lab rats. You know, it's really important to make sure we protect their health and their safety, and not just their physical well being, but also their mental well being. There is an increased rate of depression, suicide, and other long term or, um, well, life ending effects of giving children these hormones. And it doesn't change how they feel, it just changes them physically. The mutilation is separate from the feeling, the psychology, the emotion. It's more important to give these children the help that they need, the support that they need, the counseling, making sure they know we're there for them and that we love them. And by no means is it discriminating to show a child that you love them and to protect them. And I think that discrimination has been thrown around so much in so many different arenas that a lot of people have started to forget what discrimination actually is. And protecting children is not discrimination. It's the opposite. It's protecting those transgender kids or the kids who may transition one day. It's protecting their right to learn and grow, know who they are, have a healthy body, have a healthy mind, have the support that they need. So when it is time, say when they turn 18, after they're 17, when their body's more developed, they have a little bit more of critical thinking experience and ability, and the support system that they've built um, throughout their teen years where they've been considering these things. It is a process. You can't just jump in, throw these kids under the knife, or give them a bottle of hormones and expect that there's going to be a great outcome for everyone. Because also you have to think about every body is different. So not everyone's going to respond to the hormone treatments the same. Some people might have different physical adverse reactions than others. And it's just so important to just allow them the time to grow and to become who they are without the medical interference.
Now, Shell, Alberta will require parental consent for students 15 and under who want to change their names or pronouns at school. Now, students 16 and 17 would not need consent, but their parents will still have to be notified. Now, the main concern from those opposed seems to be that this would cause trans students to be outed to their parents who may disagree with their choices. Now, some argue this could be very dangerous for students. What are your thoughts?
Well, they say it would be dangerous for students. So, from what I've heard, they're implying it would be dangerous for the students because of their families and their parents, which I feel is far from the truth. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are probably some families and parents who would absolutely not accept their child's decisions or feelings and not be supportive. And that's when we need to make sure that there is help for them and a support system that we can build. But the majority of parents will not turn on their children and make things harder for them. As a mom, I know I will do whatever I can to make sure that my child's well being is put first. I will make sure that I'm building a relationship with them and not just around this issue. I think that this isn't an issue of, accusing every parent that they're going to be mean or hate their child or cause problems for them if they disagree with them. But I think we need to really support parents in teaching them how to communicate with their children, especially, the youth that may be going through these questions or um, trying to find their identity. So if we have support for parents and support for the family as a unit as well, so that they can understand each other, communicate, and create that support system.
So, Shell, what would you say to kids who've seen school as their only haven, where they feel that they can truly be themselves, where they actually feel safe, maybe safer than at home?
Well, I think that they should create a support system at school then, like we have systems in place in school and I think they can always be improved upon. But creating a support system for that student through their friends, through their teachers or a counselor or um, maybe some other adult volunteers. I don't know if that would, if they've got obviously checked to enter the school and to create a support system in the schools for these kids who feel they cannot go to their parents. But I think it is important that parents know if their child is claiming a different name or a pronoun at school that's different from their school records, it's important for the school to communicate with the parents about their children on all issues that may get that may grow into something bigger. So if it's something that can affect the child's health, well-being, their education, their social aspects around school and family, it's important the school is communicating with the parents so that they can create that support system for them. And if the school feels the parents may not be receptive or supportive to the student, um, then they can arrange to have some supports put in place. And I know that the schools do have great support systems. They do have a lot of connecting resources. I've used them with my daughter in school, and they're really happy and willing to communicate with you and work out plans. And the students need to also maybe be made more aware of that they do have support systems in school if they feel like they can't talk to their family or the parents. Um, it's just so important that communication is kept open. And if parents are shut out of the conversation before it gets started, they don't have the option to support their child. That's taking away an opportunity for the child to feel love and support. And it's so important. Like, I can't stress how much I feel that's important. I have really strived to create a good relationship with my child, as I'm sure most other parents have. And the few parents that haven't, that may struggle with knowing how to talk to their kids about these things, there are community supports. And if they don't have access to them or aren't aware of them, maybe these community support services could be boosted in advertisement or promotion on the school newsletters, on the school website. Like if you need help communicating or talking to your kids about these things or things that they're going through, it would be really beneficial to have that system where parents can actually know where to access that and where students can know where to access that.
Now, in the classroom, schools will be required to notify parents when teachers will be teaching on gender identity, human sexuality, and sexual orientation. Parents will need to give consent, and they will have the option to maybe opt their kids out of that class. Some say this is creating some division. How do you see it?
Well, I don't think it's creating division, and I think that it's right in line with how things have always been when it comes to discussions about the sexual nature in school. Even way back when I was in school, we had Theme 5. Parents had to sign a permission form, to opt you in for that class. This is no different. It's just a little bit, I would say, expanded because times have changed. There are different things happening for youth now that, or well, some of the things are the same, but I mean, it's an increased amount of what's happening with youth right now in society. As time goes on, things will continue to change, but it is a really good system in place that has been a long time in a long time, and getting permission from parents for sexual content classes has always been a thing. And this policy is just reinforcing that. It's not adding anything new.
Now, Premier Smith also has an interesting proposal when it comes to sports and trans women competing against biological females in sports. This will not be allowed. Now, the province will look at allowing trans kids to compete in co-ed leagues. Critics say this will really paint trans youth as villains, but others say it'll really protect the integrity of female sports. How do you see it?
See, I think that's a great thing, and not just to protect the integrity of female sports, which is the focus on attacking that, the female sport, is what I've noticed is the target. I don't think that it's targeting women's sports to have co-ed sports available. I think that it's opening an opportunity so it can decrease discrimination and it can create more opportunities for kids to be involved in any sport or activity that they would like to, where they may feel uncomfortable. Say, if they're a trans female, would they feel just as comfortable playing on the boys' team? I think that would even open discrimination against them. If there's boys on the team who are thinking like, oh, well, but you're actually a girl, you can't play on this team. I mean, you're a boy, but they kind of throw that around and twist it up where this person may feel attacked or unsafe. And we saw that a lot in the past with going through all the gay rights and things, and I think that there has been a big fight in the past for rights, for gay rights. And I think it's great that we have those now. As somebody who is LGTB, I think that it's great that we have the support and we have the same rights as everyone else. And it took a long time to get that recognized. And this movement to try to shame anybody who doesn't jump on board or fall in line with 100% with the beliefs of this transgender community. Well, not just the transgender community, but I would say more like the left community that is pushing this idea that there's this transgender attack, and there isn't. I think that it's just something that people are shining a spotlight on to create more problems. And Danielle Smith's proposal of these policies is the opposite. It is showing support for transgender children. It is showing support for the families. It's showing that we can find solutions to work together, and there doesn't need to be the division. There doesn't need to be discrimination against anyone. And we just need to support each other, Love makes the world go round. If you really think about it, it's the only way to make success and to grow.
Shell Landry is one of the leaders of Freedom Hub Lethbridge and a concerned parent. Shell, thanks so much for joining us today from Lethbridge.
Thank you.
You know, in today's media world, it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge to find wholesome children's programming that you don't have to worry about as a parent or a grandparent. Well, joining us today from Nashville, Tennessee to chit-chat a bit about this are Katie and Ryan Chase. Katie stars as Mabel in his series A Wonderful Day with Mabel McKay, and her husband, Ryan, is the co-creator. But before we start the conversation, let's take a sneak peek of the show.
It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. Well, it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day with Mabel McClay.
I'm coming, Jasper. I'm coming. Hiya, Jasper.
Oh, hi, Mabel.
My, oh my. You've got a lot of stuff going on in here.
Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff here. I got everything I need.
I got your question mark. What's going on?
Oh, well, the reason I drew question marks on account of I'm stuck like that.
Oh, stuck.
Yeah, I'm stuck.
What, did you chew up a bottle of glue again?
No, that was a sticky situation. But no, it's nothing like that. You see, what I mean is I'm having a hard time being creative, see?
Oh.
I'm all out of ideas. I can't seem to make no more. Oh, I'm just not creative after all.
You not creative? Show us what you're making.
I am trying to make a time machine. A time machine!
A time machine?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right
my,
here.
Oh my, where'd you get an idea like that?
Well, see, kind of how it came about was like this. I was missing you so much that I figured if I make a time machine, then I could speed up time and get you to come home soon.
Oh, I see. Jasper, that is so sweet and so creative.
Welcome to Bridge City News, Katie and Ryan. So tell us a bit about the series, A Wonderful Day with Mabel. Why did you really decide to create a show like this?
Well, hello. Thank you for having us. We're so excited to talk about this show. It's a children's program that really celebrates the idea that life is wonderful and that it's worth wondering about. And it stars Mabel McClay and her dog Jasper, who's very silly. And they spend a day kind of wondering about things together. And so we really wanted to create a show that felt the way shows used to kind of feel. And so it has that sort of nostalgic feel to it a little bit, we think. And we're so excited as more and more parents watch it, they can kind of sense that from it as well.
And we have 3 young kids, and so we were always trying to figure out, well, what can we put on? And at some point, I ran out of Andy Griffith episodes to show them, and so we thought it's time to make our own show if it's possible. And thank goodness it was.
And the fact that you have a dog in there, as a dog lover myself, I really appreciate that. So thank you. Now, are you hearing from parents voicing concerns about their kids being influenced by today's so-called woke culture programming?
Well, we are parents, and so all of our friends are parents, and that's sort of it is a topic that comes up, unfortunately, this feeling of kind of messaging coming in through really young children's content that doesn't feel quite appropriate for them, and then introduces concepts that we hadn't introduced as parents yet, and that feels really tricky to navigate. And so the idea behind the platform that our show is on, called Bentkey, is just that you don't have to pre-screen anything. So I think parents are really loving that, kind of taking that burden off of them of having to watch through and make sure, and do we really know this show? Taking that away is just a really lovely thing, I think, for all parents.
So how do you guys feel that the elements of your program really engage the audience? And are you looking for parents to maybe participate as well?
Yes, that was part of the goal, was not just to we wanted to make a beautiful show and a show that keeps the young viewers' attention. But as a parent, when kids put stuff on, on the TV, most of the time it's like a buzzing. You're just like, turn it off. It's so loud. It's flashy. It's almost like a sugar high. And we wanted something that parents would enjoy having on as well. And so we were very purposeful and diligent about it's got to be a slower pace like shows used to be, and it has to be engaging, and trust that kids will learn some of the moral lessons, and we'll have fun along the way. And we don't have to chase their attention with flash this and that, and all the wonderful technology that there is today. Ours is very, very. We're very purposeful about everything is practical. The puppet is he's a real puppet, and all the special effects are everything that could be practical was, and very purposeful in the messaging.
It has a very sweet and simple show. We were feel to it for a show. We were really inspired by Mr. Rogers, which was one of our favorite shows growing up. And he had this trust, it seemed, that children could sit with content that was a bit gentler and a bit slower paced, and didn't overstimulate them. And so that's what we really set out to do.
Yes, I noticed that the show actually has a bit of a gentle and a calm feel and isn't overstimulating, like you're saying. So that was done on purpose?
Yes, it was. It was probably the thing that was most important to us in setting out to make a show, because as parents, we know what it's like when we turn on something for our children and it's so bright and so noisy and so quickly edited. And by the time it ends, our children seem all revved up and sort of frazzled. And so we wanted a show that did the opposite. We felt really strongly about that.
And how important is it as well, Ryan? Maybe I'll ask you this question, to have a message behind each and every program, or maybe a lesson that's learned?
Absolutely. Entertainment can be something that just gets kids through the moment, or hopefully it can be something that sits with them and they're entertained in the first interaction, and then later we hope with our show that they leave our show, turn it off, and go out into the world and wonder about the thing that they found through the story. And so we're very, very purposeful about putting a moral message in there, and modeling behavior, and modeling the problems that you would have as a young kid in a family environment or with friends. And so very, very, very important to not just have something that's entertaining, but that has a purpose behind it.
There's a real focus on social emotional skills in the show. And so we have 20 episodes in season 1, and each one takes on a different one of these skills. So we have a forgiveness episode and a curiosity episode. There's one on responsibility and creativity. So it was really important to us to thread those themes throughout each episode, so that a kid is, first of all, learning a really big new vocabulary word, and then also learning something that feels like an age-appropriate area of focus in their social emotional development.
Is there also an episode maybe focusing a bit on honoring thy mother and father?
Yes, we do have a respect episode, and we talk about honoring our mother and father and using respectful language in that way. And we talk about respecting members of the military in that way, and that type of respect that they've earned. And so we love that episode. It's a fun one.
So many of today's kids shows move very quickly. So in comparison, is this kind of a program able to keep the attention of young kids? What are you hearing from the parents and the children?
Yes, we've walked the line of, as she said, we loved Mr. Rogers and growing up, and we've shown our kids all that. And probably today, that is a great show. It's the standard bearer, but it's probably a little slow. And so ours isn't full Mr. Rogers pace, and it's slower than normal most shows, but it really walks the line of being fun and moving along, but it lets you sit in the moments, and it's not just chasing the kid's attention the whole time, which is we trust that a kid, if you give them like good food, they'll sit and enjoy it, and they're not rushing to get the next sugar high. And even though there's plenty of fun and sugar in this, but
it's interesting. Before the show came out, I was probably most nervous about the pacing, most nervous that modern kids could really handle what we set up and created, which is moments of breath in the show. I mean, the character Mabel, when she walks through her house, it's quite big, and she doesn't talk to the camera and keep saying crazy things. She just kind of takes a breath and walks silently. And we wondered, is this really going to work? And saying that their very young children are able to sit with this show and sit with this pacing.
So how did you get inspiration for a lot of the themes when it came to the programs that you're producing here? Is it from your own life experiences with your own kids?
Yes, a bit of that. We definitely get inspiration all the time at home with our 3 crazy children of like, oh, going to a birthday party was tricky this weekend. Oh, that's an interesting topic. I bet a lot of parents are looking at that. We also came from our own point of view, which is a Christian household. So pulling some of those worldviews as well. And
we taught kids for 15 years and had a small business of teaching kids improv. And we've had a lot of inspiration from the years of doing that.
Yes, we taught improv comedy to children, which a lot of people think might involve just making them be hilarious. But we were really interested in teaching them life skills like teamwork and kindness and generosity. And so this show is a really natural extension of that work as well.
You know, I took some improv as well many years ago. It helps you to really think on your feet, especially during interviews as well. But let me ask you something. How can parents really encourage and nurture their children's own creativity?
I think the number one tip is to trust that they can tolerate being bored, because that can be tricky for parents sometimes when we feel like we need to cure that frustration that comes up when they say they have nothing to do. And often creativity always sits right on the other side of that frustration. So if we can just get them through tolerating that feeling. And then also I always encourage parents to throw their children outside because the outdoors and boredom seem to be where all of our best ideas come, in my experience. And so at the end of each one of our episodes, actually, Mabel and Jasper go outside. They say goodbye by going outdoors to go wonder about things while they're fishing on the lake. And I just adore that, because it really is our best advice for nurturing creativity in little ones.
You know, it's interesting as well. Yeah, when I was a kid, you'd hop on my bike, go to my buddy's house, we'd listen to records, or maybe ride our bikes to the arcade. But you're always going outside, right? Getting physically active, taking in the fresh air, interacting with other human beings. Because it seems like today's kids, a lot of kids, especially preteens, it's all about the Xbox and PlayStation 4. And so there's not really that human interaction, is there?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was I grew up the same way. You get on your bike, you go, and there's kind of a radius about as far as you could go, you know, and you come home when the sun goes down. It's time for dinner. And even when technology was creeping in, you know, when you got your an arcade or whatnot, there was still tactileness to it. You had to put the quarter in. You had to earn a quarter to have to put in. And so we're kind of missing those these days, where a screen is always available and it's very you're very insulated and you're not interacting in the real world with real people.
I think this was our way of embracing that these screens do exist. This technology does exist. Now, what are we going to do about it? And what are we going to do about it with really young children? Our show is most well suited for preschoolers and young elementary students, and there's a responsibility there to do good things with this technology, I believe.
You know, with any TV series, you know, when it comes to television programming and content, there are some challenges. What are some of the challenges you guys ran into?
Sure. Well, yes, there are always so many tricky things that come up. I remember one day the power went out from a windstorm. And so our whole 50-person crew, it's an enormous production on our show, sat in the dark all day, which is such wasted time and money. And then when it finally came on, we had to power through and shoot everything we were supposed to shoot that day. So there are always things like that. And we found ourselves really having to walk the walk in terms of maintaining all of these values that we believe in that we're teaching on camera. We did have to, under really challenging circumstances, really be who we say we are in those moments.
But then the blessing ends up being the lights are off and the crew, we were so blessed by this crew, a very older seasoned crew. They had known each other from different things over the years in Bible studies, and we found folks gathering. They pulled a guitar out and started playing some worship songs, and I was getting to know them on a level I hadn't got to know, and it was lovely to be by candlelight in this big studio. Just, you know, those kind of stories over and over in our experience.
Katie and Ryan Chase are the creators of the series A Wonderful Day with Mabel McClay. Thanks so much for joining us today from Nashville, Tennessee.
Thanks for having us.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.